Namaskar and welcome to this special program on Operation Sindoor. As we have seen recently, a lot of diplomatic and military developments, narratives and counter-narratives happening. And as Prime Minister in his address to the nation said, the operation is just paused and not completely stopped. To decode this entire operation, what does it mean? Have we really accepted ceasefire? Was there any scope or is there any scope for a third-party intervention? And what can be the future course of action? To discuss all these things, we have with us Lieutenant General Vinod Khandare, an eminent and a very decorated armed forces officer who is now principal advisor to the Minister of Defense and who has served from 1979 first as a officer in 14 Garhwal Regiment, Garhwal Rifles. And then in infantry, he was involved in operational tasks in various parts of India, including Siachen, Jammu Kashmir, Sikkim, as well as the entire northeastern region. He commanded a brigade with an operational role in the northeastern parts of India. His final appointment in the services was as Director General Defense Intelligence, where he was also, Deputy Chief of Integrated Defense Staff for Intelligence. And presently, Sir is a principal advisor to Ministry of Defense. So, welcome, sir, for this conversation, and thank you for sparing your time. Your first thought, sir, the entire operation, and how do you see this, the success of our military objectives in Operation Sindoor?
Prafulji, the first impression about this is, what a brilliant masterstroke choosing the name Sindoor. The entire nation came together because our civilizational history is such that our women folk are most revered and respected. And somebody has done wrong to them by creating a newly married girl into a widow. So I think the Prime Minister chose a brilliant word. So that brought what we always keep talking as a phrase of whole of nation. This is whole of nation in thought, in emotions, and we all went into it together. Now, when we started this, conventionally, in the armed forces, we are told, we've grown up like that it will be a short, swift, intense war. But we were always told there will be a warning period. Then we were told there will be a specific method of conflict initiation. And people normally followed the method of 1971, where Field Marshal Manekshaw, then General Manekshaw, told the Prime Minister, I need so much of time. Now, what has come out in this conflict, the differences. The first time we have not only restricted ourselves to line of control, we spread the entire thing and stretched our adversary to the seams. So, first thing, brilliant, I would say. The second thing, if you recollect, when the Gulf War happened, people used to say high-tech war, Tomahawk missiles have taken the entire
first
battlefield.
War could be seen on television
in your drawing room, and people said, oh, Americans are great. Then when Russia-Ukraine thing happened, again, people said, Elon Musk has put so many satellites on top. Oh, West is great. Then what Israel did, you remember the pagers, and you remember somebody sitting on the second floor, the missile is going from the sixth floor. People said, great. And now you look at this particular conflict, not a single aircraft went across, but targeted. Not a single man went across, but targeted. So what does it mean? For years to come, people will talk about this operation as to how you should minimize your losses, but in the least possible time, with the best possible precision targeting, using convergence of satellites, using convergence of other sensors, how you are able to pick up his anti-aircraft defenses, how you're going to nullify his radars, how you're going to nullify his close protection air defense, and go and target those assets of his which are otherwise known as strategic. Noor Khan Air Base, Sargodha, Bolari, these are strategic assets. Whether they spread from Skardu to Bolari, so a small tactical thought has now converted into a strategic mission. And I think the armed forces did extremely well to decide on what the nation wants. I think the apex level, with the Prime Minister leading, the NSA leading, the CDS and the three chiefs and the CCS, it was a teamwork. I don't think people had thought about it, and that has to follow up with the information warfare, narrative setting. So I think there are too many things in this. Cyber is also incorporated in this. So there are so many things. I think what we have done in phase one of the nation, you decided on what you wanted to do, you achieved that. And the escalatory ladder, you were going one by one and you were watching what the other person does. And sure enough, by 10th, he had decided to quit. And he decided to ring you up and tell you, let's put a stop. So in the escalatory ladder, we had control over it. And we were very clear that these are terrorist camps which we are destroying. When I say camp, people will feel it is a camp. These were proper structures. They were huge empires of theirs. And when we destroyed that, it's a very strong message that
Yes, the main
Bahawalpur
headquarters
and
like
Murid ke.
Bahawalpur and all those.
So your messaging has been that our fight is against terrorism, and we know no boundaries when it comes to destroying the terrorist structure.
I'll come to escalation ladders, sir, and how we actually won the one-upmanship kind of thing. But first, coming to this, there was a window. Pahalgam terror attack happened. And then there was a lot of pressure actually on the government, on armed forces. Everybody was expecting something will happen. So how do you see this particular phase when people were expecting a lot and they were sure that something will happen, and still we took our own time to do the precision strike? So how do you see this?
Actually, what happens, the human psyche is such that you correlate with the past war. So if, let us say, people were asked, they were looking at what happened in surgical strikes, how many days did we take, what happened in Pulwama and Balakot, how did we do it? And I think Pakistan was also waiting to see that something like that will happen. Whether it is time or whether it is space, whether it is the geographical expanse. So if you are going to follow exactly the same thought, then you are not achieving anything more.
Absolutely.
So at one place, when people said, oh, it should be in the next 24 hours, somebody said it should be within a week. And that is how the narrative was building up. But how it happens when we are doing a different kind of a response, because Pulwama was an action and we were now in a reaction. We had to do something which would have meant that our widows, young widows,
Pahalgam, you mean?
Pahalgam, they would feel that the nation stands with them. Even in Pulwama, the same thing happened, that 40 people is not a joke. So, but to repeat the past answer is not the correct way. So we were doing something which was better than that. And this time the response was at a number of places. Earlier it was, say, for example, Pulwama, it was Balakot, simple, and we came back. Now it requires a lot of coordination, and this was the first time we were doing integrated operations along the LC, deep into the hinterland, including Punjab, Sindh, and the Navy was also on standby, deployed where you look at how the Navy did a wonderful job. It takes time for them to sail. The Navy had just finished its exercise. So they had to come back, they had to refuel, they had to load the ammunition all over again and then go back. So this is what is the bare minimum time that was taken. And coordination does take, and then it's not only that you're planning on the operation, you're planning what happens if he does something. So there are a number of main plans, alternate plans, contingency plans. And then you have to have preparation for that. Maybe after 1971, we had never spoken about civil defense. This time we spoke about civil defense. So this Ministry of Home, along with the DGPs of state police, they were also getting into their act. So it was taking that much essential time. I'm not saying it is more than essential. I think optimum time utilization was done.
Now, if we see the operations, whether post Uri, then Pahalgam, then Pulwama, then Pahalgam. In the first operation, we crossed LOC. The second, we crossed
even the IB.
Even the IB. And now we have hit actually almost 165 kilometers inside Pakistan, including Punjab, where it hurts the most for Pakistan military, especially the leadership. So how do you see this kind of precision? Because it was not very easy, multiple places. So technologically, if somebody who's a layman has to capture this, from a defense point of view, how do you see this, at multiple locations? Actually, there are 9 camps, but 21 places were actually targeted. 9 were. So, how do you see this precision strike?
See, the choice this time was very clear that we have to do from the air. Ground, we will hold the line of control. We will intensify the situation there. And why we will intensify on the line of control is because he has problems of ammunition stocks that he has. He has problems of fuel stocks. So we will engage him there. And at the same time, there were certain things which were announced which possibly kept people busy. That Indus Water Treaty. So a lot of people started thinking. While military was carefully choosing the targets, so military was choosing targets based on intelligence reports from RNAW, NTRO. So absolute details where if you have something from human intelligence, then it has to be verified by technical intelligence. There are experts this side, there are experts that side. All that had to be brought together. Now, when we say this huge expanse, the idea of huge expanse is where will he react once you start doing it? So you have to tie him down. In the sense, if you do something in Skardu and you do something in Bolari, at whichever phase of the operation, will the troops from Bolari move? They should not. Will the troops from Skardu move? They will not. So what are you doing? You are spreading him in a way, and that is one of the best things. When you look at deep, Pakistan is not a very deep territory.
Right.
Geography is very narrow. And when you're going up to Sakar or when you're going up to, say, Rawalpindi, so you're going deep. And if you recollect Prafullji, he had always been talking of strategic depth.
Yes.
You denied him that. And by denying him that, and then we may not have announced, we may not have wanted to announce, but if you put your hand on his nuclear assets, advertently, inadvertently, announced, unannounced, but that bluff goes away. And with the kind of leadership we have currently with the Honorable Prime Minister, he's decisive. If it has to be done, it has to be done. And that is what he had told our service chiefs. This is how it will be done. And he gave a lot of time to our service chiefs, CDS, Raksha Mantri, NSA. Everything was worked out in such precise details that the chances of going wrong would have been possibly 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 1,00,000. So I think precise planning and choosing, looking at how to stretch him, not let him converge at one place. And finally, what happened? Within 3 days, he had to make a call to the DGM.
So 6th and 7th night, sir, this precision strike happened. But what happened later was much more interesting. Because our armed forces must have expected, some kind of retaliation. We give them a report also that
Yes.
we have made a strike, and our DGMO gave a
We
clear
gave a
cut.
log to him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in the hope that some sense prevail, and that they accept that this is a military, the terror targets are being hit. But there was a retaliation expected, being Pakistan. So what happened later from 7th to 10th is much more interesting, because it started with drone attacks, and in fact multiple drones coming Indian way. Then of course the attempts for even the air and the missile. So how we managed to maintain that one-upmanship in the entire operation when it comes to if you go through the escalation ladder, we were always on top. So how did it happen?
See, one more lesson we had learned last time, and lessons were learned on that side also and this side also. So that side, we had chosen a target, Balakot, which was in the middle of nowhere. So people started saying we've not hit it. People here were asking us to give evidence, which is the saddest day in an armed forces officer's life, when your own people say, give me evidence, whether it's surgical strikes or Balakot. So this time, if you look at it, urban warfare, not warfare, but in the urban center of a populated area, you go precisely for what they used to call it as the markers. Now it's for everyone to see. So you've done something. And last time also, when we had declared that, look, we have done something and we are putting a stop to it. And it had stopped, except that he came and then Abhinandan landed up, and then everything cooled down after that. All the negotiations, I don't want to go into that. But this time also we expected that swift retort, similar thing will happen. And since he also realized that we have S-400, he may not have planned as much to use the aircrafts as the drones, because drones have a very low RCS, radar cross signature. So with those drones, and obviously he's being held by China and Turkey very openly, Azerbaijan openly. So he started using the drones. And what were the drones targeting? Very sadly, he was targeting our people in Poonch, Rajouri, he was targeting our people in Barmer. So obviously, he had no qualms about hitting our civilians. Now,
even places of worships were
yes, Gurdwara, imagine. How do you do that? People of Uri have suffered hugely. Now, people of Uri, if they have suffered, then where is the question of this two-nation theory, Hindu and Muslim? He's targeting the Muslims himself. So obviously, there is something wrong in his thinking. I am talking of Asif Munir. And then when you have to relieve the pressure on your civilians, what will you do? We are not the ones who will target his civilians. So we will target his military assets only after when we realize that this is not acceptable to us. So when these airfields got targeted, and that in the escalatory ladder, because he raised that to civilians, we raised it from terrorists to military only after it did not stop. And in that, precise hits on his radars, precise hits on his anti-aircraft guns or systems, then the runways, then the ATCs. So hangars. So finally, when we raised it to that level, and incidentally, two of these airfields were such where he possibly interpreted as red line being crossed, and that is where he went screaming to USA. And again, this is also an escalatory ladder about conflict termination. Conflict initiation we had done. Conflict management we were doing, because escalatory ladder, every time we used to climb something, we used to tell him, look, we did not mean to hit military targets. You are hitting civilian targets, not done. And if you do this, then we get at you. So, and then conflict termination, because it was so heavy, so he had to take a third party interference or intervention. And again, I think we were very clear that we are not going to talk to a third party. So again, there we were on top, and which even the superpower realized. He may have taken credit on his own, self-proclaimed. Nobody gave him credit from our side. So, but there also, there was a moral high that we have always maintained bilateral resolution of conflict. So here again, we are still on top.
Sir, the another important dimension of this conflict was the way our entire resolve, which was sometimes earlier mocked as just a sloganeering called Made in India and Atmanirbharta in defense sector. But now we have seen what DRDO can do, what our indigenous defense technology can do, what the technology that we have transferred and now producing in India can do. So how do you see the role of this entire process? In fact, Air Marshal Bharti also mentioned in the DDMO press conference about the way the things have changed in last 7-8 years.
See, when you look at a decade and a half, we had bulk of our inventory only from one country, one superpower. Now, Cold War had its own dimension. Now, nobody is ever able to predict as to how things will happen. End of the Cold War, USSR collapsing, the entire assets getting distributed into so many countries. So we were dependent on Ukraine, we were dependent on Russia, we were dependent on Belarus. What do we do? So you can't change an inventory overnight. And that is the time two decisions were taken. One is to diversify from countries of origin. And second, that we must get onto the Atmanirbharta at the earliest. And this kind of a momentum came in the last couple of years, where there is one very interesting thing, Prafulji, which I must tell you. We had a thought process that everything works on transfer of technology. And the government took a decision, no, hereafter we are not going to pay royalty, we are not going to wait for the transfer of technology, absorption completely, taking years. If you say that, okay, absorb in 10 years, it's not absorbed in 20 years. And by that time, there is another model.
Absolutely.
A new technology has come. Now, this time cycle for new technology discovery has compressed.
Absolutely.
Every 18 months, there is a new technology. Now, are we going to still follow those luxurious timelines? No. So that is when we thought the appropriate model is a joint venture. And BrahMos is a successful model that AK-203 is a successful model. Now C-295 transport aircrafts with Airbus, that is a successful model. So what are we trying to do? We are trying to go in for joint venture where we do not have the technology, but we need technology from abroad. So, and the choice for choosing an Indian partner, whether it is in the public sector or private sector, or you form a company like AK-2003, IRRPL. It's a company which has been formed with Russians and with the ordnance factory. BrahMos, similar thing. But C-295, it is private, Tata's, and which means we have tested these models and it's going to work well. Now, when Atmanirbharta became important, the government took some very good policy decisions. The amount of money kept separate for buying indigenous products. So here we are talking of technology and here we are talking of products. There is something where we do not have the technology. But once we develop it and we come to a level where designing, development, we've mastered, or we've come to a fairly good level, and then we find in the Indian ecosystem, the Indian industrial ecosystem, there are people who can productionize. So we went in for productionizing in India. Okay, some help from our friendly foreign countries will be there. And that is the time we realized that what we are doing in the services now, bringing a positive list, means initially when General Rawat was there as the CDS, so 100 plus, 200 plus, 300 plus, 500 plus now. What is it? Components which can be made in India, and there's a timeline. So, for example, there is component A to be made. Is it available today? Yes. Okay, very good. Component B. No, it's not available today, but within about 6 months it will happen. Component C, it will take about a year. Component D, it will take 3 years. That is mentioned. And based on that, you are able to ensure that your imports are controlled. If your imports are controlled, the leverage is controlled, because some country someday may suddenly decide to turn off the taps. There are some countries which may give you something, but the back door leads to some other country. Now, we all suffered during COVID. The whole world suffered during COVID because the semiconductor chips, the flow just froze. Now, the government has immediately taken charge of that.
Corrective measures.
This is a complete journey. Now, in this conflict also, we have seen what more we need to do, and more lessons will follow as to what is it that we need to get into our own control. You've seen Akash missiles, you've seen BrahMos, you've seen quite a few of these drones which are Indian made, the loitering ammunition, very much. So, will the nature of the next war be same? May not be. So, we will have to again identify what more do we need to do for Atmanirbharta, whether it is about your mobility, whether it's about your communication, it is your firepower, your surveillance, precision striking. So all these things we are looking at it in detail. There is a lot of devolution of power also, where the service headquarters can buy, whether through the capital route. We have had the emergency procurement, 5 of them, now possibly the 6th one. These emergency powers are given to overcome the current deficiencies or vacuum. The capital route is your capability building for the next 10 years, 15 years. All 3 services are now coming and ensuring that as much as possible, Atmanirbharta, coming together. So I think what we were as it is doing, with this impetus now, we realized that if, for example, let's hypothetically say that we were dependent on USA, he would have just turned off the taps. But this time he could not. So it further substantiates the fact that what we are doing is right. We need to do more of it.
Now, in many equipments now we are exporting also.
Yes. You'll be surprised. There are so many of our startups, MSMEs, which make components which are exported. Exported to Israel, exported to UK, exported to USA, exported to Germany. What does that mean? We possibly still haven't reached that level where the integrated entire system may not be available with us. But our startups and MSMEs and even bigger industries, they're extremely good. Like so much of artillery ammunition is required world over. So we have people who are making the shells. The third country is taking it away. They are filling it up and using it. So we have a very vibrant system. The MSME ministry is also working on that. The heavy industry ministry is also working on that. Ministry of Defense is also working on that. I think overall this is a good time, and I think more and more business friendly approach of the government. One thing which is extremely important here, which we need to look at more, is the R&D. We keep accusing everyone that, private industry is not putting enough money in R&D. I think some kind of financial benefits to them. It used to be there for some misuse, then it got turned back. I think the government will be very much aware, because unless you do R&D, you will never be ahead in the technology curve as compared to your adversary.
Absolutely. Sir, you talked about changing nature of war. And besides technology, another important aspect that has been talked about for a long time now, but it was more visible this time. One is the cyber, other is cyber, and third is the information, rather disinformation, misinformation, whatever we want to call it. Now we are taking action on, the Chinese platforms or the Turkish platform, but the way misinformation was being played during the operation, right from the day actually the Pahalgam incident took place, about whether those were terrorists sponsored by Pakistan, whether they use religion as an identity to kill certain people. All these things were challenged in international media, and we know, those are known suspects. So how, whether there is a thinking in defense or our military policy or military objective, how to deal with this?
See, when we talk of changing nature of war, so from kinetic, we have to start looking beyond and we have to look at non-kinetic. So, are these two independent? They cannot be. So, kinetic and non-kinetic have to be sequenced together. Like, without declaration of war, you will continue to dominate the electromagnetic spectrum. So, electromagnetic spectrum falls under the non-kinetic domain. The information space, cyberspace also falls under the non-kinetic domain. Will you be suddenly at the press of the button be able to create cyber warriors? Will you be able to create information warriors? So it's obviously it has to be continuously. This is one. And it has to be generation after generation. There is another temptation which normally people fall for. It is, if we need cyber warriors, then we need a cyber army, which has to be a structured army, and then people have to be paid there. And then look at others. Say, for example, whether it is Israel or whether it is Russia, China, patriotic citizens immediately join the ranks. It's not only the pay scale which matters, it is the fire inside that your motherland, fatherland, whatever you call it, anyone targeting your country, your nation has to be targeted. Nobody gives a formal order, but they get into it. And over a period of time, then their ethos and everything develops. Like China has a huge cyber army. It's not a part of any theater.
Structured.
They are there. And obviously CCP guides them.
Yes.
So that kind of a thing will be required. So whether it is about information warrior or this. You look at 1.4 billion population. Out of that, I think 1 billion must be using smart devices and internet. Is there any formal course which is for that? No. You just take a device and you start working on it. The point here is the content, the ability to decide whether this content which has come to me on the device, it is anti-national or it is a suspect or it is pro-national. I think 3 simple steps where a common man, a citizen, has to just decide that it is pro-India, let me send it, let me share it. It is absolutely against India, so I have to ask the person who sent it to me, why are you sending it to me? Who's sent it to you? Let's report that man. So the campaign dies. The third one where nobody knows. It could be, it may not be. At least in India, we have a good system of family values. We have a good system of Guru Shishya. We have somebody to fall back upon to ask. And that somebody also is mature enough. He doesn't know, he says, Beta, mujhe nahi pata. Main pata karke batata hu. And so you're controlling that so-called tsunami of disinformation. Now here I want to tell you very clearly, there is a difference between disinformation and misinformation. Disinformation is a campaign planned. Misinformation is that Chinese whisper. I tell you something, you tell somebody something, by the time it comes back to me, it is something else. So that is misinformation. So whatever has happened so far, it is not misinformation. It's a planned, deliberate disinformation. But within India, that 0.5 threat, it is very much prevalent in the information space, cyberspace. There are possible thoughts in my mind that we are a developing economy. There are so many things which are happening. Nature of warfare, what happens in an industry? There is gas. There are so many chemicals which are utilized. How difficult it is for somebody to just create a problem, create a panic and then stretch you. Will you fight ahead? Will you look at things what are happening inside? Are our police forces or civil defense volunteers capable enough to handle it properly? Do we have enough resources? I think this is creditable. After 1971, I think for the first time we saw civil defense get up so beautifully, where the Home Minister was getting all the DG polices. I met the DG civil defense, a very vibrant person. His staff, very vibrant. The sirens, the digging of trenches, drills for the children. I still remember in one of the podcasts when I had spoken that in 1965, when as a child I was in Delhi with my parents and they used to be blackout. The people asked me, blackout? What is that? So there is a full series of generations who've not understood that when war starts, it is not the militaries which go to war. Nations go to
Nation
war.
goes for war.
And this is now citizens' involvement. So nature of war today is the citizen himself has to be a stakeholder in this.
Now you have talked about point 5. So, militarily we have achieved certain objectives. But politically there are always people, first who would ask why Pahalgam happened, who was behind it. Then they would say why there is no counteraction. When action happens, then they would start peace, de-escalate, don't retaliate. Now they would say third party interview. So there will be always some kind of campaign going on. So fortunately now they are getting exposed. They are now in limited pockets, or their faces are now identified immediately and people talk about it. But as a nation, how should we look at, because it was I remember General Rawat who spoke about this 2.5.
2.5, yeah.
And now Bangladesh coming, we perhaps will have to think about another front. So how are we going to fight? Because ultimately the nation has to fight that point. Military will fight the 2 front, 3 front, whatever it is. But this 0.5 front. So what would you suggest?
The biggest challenge for any democracy is the internal cohesion. Because there is so much of freedom and there's so much of transparency and so much of expectation that before the government does something, they should tell us. And after the government does something, again they should tell us. Is that the best way to fight a war? Because you are disclosing things which should not be ever discussed.
Allowed.
So,
means I as a media person, I seriously felt bad, sir, when government had to come out and give an advisory to media that please don't share the live locations of armed forces.
And Prafulji, this is not the first time. It happened during Kargil. It happened during 26/11. So how many times are we going to get our men killed? At whose cost? Somebody has to be held accountable for that. We always felt that in a democracy we should look at self-regulation. And we always talked of self-regulation, but it hasn't worked. Why hasn't it worked? Is it that the people who are reporting, or is it people who are with mobile camera, don't they understand? Yes, they do understand. Even this time, I will tell you, a lot of people approach me, sir, please tell me this, please tell me that. And I used to sit down carefully and ask them, what will you do with this information which you are seeing? Sir, हम उसको छापेंगे. अच्छा, वो आप छापोगे, तो what will be the impact on our military operation? Some of them were as crass as saying, sir, वो फौज देख लेगी. I said, but ये आपकी फौज है, ये वो किसी और की फौज है. So somebody had to sit and talk to them. But
Is
that
it
realization,
part of this strategic thought process is also part of our evolving a strategic culture in a society. Also is a process that whether a democracy or not, but somebody has to follow.
see how it happens is you look at our two very clear identified adversaries, China and Pakistan. China, if the CPC does not want anything to be conveyed, the Chinese Communist Party, they will crack down. And you don't obey, you're out in some mine digging something. In Pakistan, it is similar. In Pakistan, the kind of bond that they have, and one Maulvi issues a whip, fatwa issue kar diya, so everyone better follow that. Educated, materially well off, not well off, that is immaterial. आपको बता दिया ये direction, तो ये लोग. In our country, you have more than the cardinal direction that we talk of. So everyone is on his own trip. But I think what we need to develop that strategic culture, and strategic culture right from ancient days used to start from your family sanskars. And this is a land which has seen so many wars, bitter days. The entire landscape used to be ruined. Nobody ever spoke against the king. Nobody ever went and colluded with the enemy, at least from the common citizens. Others may have done whatever they had to. But that capability to be resilient so that your own king or your own country did not give up the spirit of fighting. Even if pushed down to the ground, you again came up and fought.
Sometimes even the kings lost, but the society didn't lose.
You look at typically Maratha Empire, the way it happened. Somebody gave you, Chhatrapati Shivaji gave you such a beautiful dream, and for more than 100 years it continued. So this is what is strategic culture, how it has to come up. Somebody has given us a dream of 2047 Viksit Bharat. Now it is all of us who have to put our shoulder to the wheel and ensure that we don't waste our resources. So to that extent, this decision to keep the conflict in a controlled manner, this is also a strategic thought. This is strategic culture. That you don't have to fight the last war. You have to decide my resources and my ultimate gain. 2047 we have to do, it can't be pushed beyond that. So you better do quick punishment, get back to your normal life and be ready. He does anything stupid, again, give it to him. So this is that nature of war, and nature of war always may not be rockets. It can be cyber, it can be information, it can be Indus Water Treaty, it can be anything.
Now, sir, you have talked about the strategic decision of many people were, at least first 24 hours till DGMO press conference, were shocked. Some people were upset, thinking that this was as if a last chance to take back PoJK or dismantle Pakistan, disintegrate Pakistan, whatever dreams they had. And media also had given hype for 3-4 days with their own kind of reporting. But government never used the word ceasefire. It was a stoppage of firing. All kinds of phrases were used. When Foreign Secretary spoke, when Minister of External Affairs spoke, even DGMO press conference never used the word ceasefire. Prime Minister when gave a clear message that it is just a pause and we have not stopped. It is far from war. What does it mean?
See, when you start a particular action, you started a conflict, you didn't declare a war. There was no declaration of war. There were clear military tasks outlined, and you were told that terrorism has to be hit. Having hit those terrorism, you wanted to see what does the adversary do, which he did by targeting your civilians. Your civilians are as important to you, whether they are living in Rajouri, Poonch, Uri, or in Badmer or Amritsar. When they suffer, we all suffer. So you had to punish. At what stage did you ever say when we started the conflict that we will break Pakistan and we will bring back PoJK? We didn't do that. So that means people have had ideas, people have been discussing this, which is desirable. In a vibrant democracy, you should keep discussing, no doubt about it. But just because an action has started doesn't mean that it will end like that. So what was the end goal? The end goal was very clear. Then we shifted the end goal, we kept doing that. But ultimately, if it is going to harm your economy and if it is, so you stop, but you say, I am prepared. Deterrence by power. You've demonstrated power. Now you're deterring any further mischief by power. And if it doesn't get deterred, then you will execute another power. So a lot of people had dreams and a lot of media hype which created that this is the last chance to take PoJK. Why last chance? Who stops us from doing anything subsequently? So to foreclose your options by just imagining that this is the last chance.
And that is also after Pahalgam, when the starting point was by the adversary.
We did not choose that. If we had chosen, we would have taken 9 months to prepare. This was a reaction to their action. And the other point is, when you decide to take PoJK or you feel that you can make Balochistan independent, it's a deliberate operation. It will require a lot of preparation. It will require a lot of stage setting. The global dynamics will have to be shaped in a manner. Today, something starts. Pakistan, which is a non-permanent member in the UN Security Council, it's able to prevail to get a narrative which it wants. Because you don't have somebody there. So finally, when you will, whatever time you decide, if you decide, there will be a new set of preparation that will be required. So we should not confuse into a short conflict where punishment was the goal. And if you want to change geography, then it's a separate preparation altogether.
So, post stoppage of firing or aggressive postures on the border, now how do you see our war on terror going ahead? Because some operation is already going on in Shopia. We are clearly, trying to brief even the diplomatic community about what we have done and what was our military objective in this entire operation. So, how do you see the things unfolding post this aggressive push?
So, Prafulji, firstly, along the external part, so there is a line of control segment, there is an IB segment, and there is a maritime segment. So, when you talk of terrorism, this is a combination of what we have at home. This is a combination of what we have from outside. Internal part has to be handled in certain areas by Rashtriya Rifles, Jammu Kashmir Police, the intelligence agencies. They have been doing it for decades. They will continue doing it, and possibly they will intensify because this is the time to put pressure. Do very clean operation so that there is no collateral damage, because then alienation does take place. So this is in the line of control sector. In the IB sector, there is a very big thought that we have to look at. Are we very good at preventing infiltrations through the IB sector, or even through the Nepal sector, or even through the maritime sector? So here it may not be a military solution. Here there are state police, there is BSF, there are intelligence agencies, there are citizens. There are people who are involved into drug smuggling. There are people who do not report drones coming and doing something. So this is now whole of nation. So
even Coast Guard and Marine Police and
absolutely. So whole of nation. You said Marine Police. What is their capability? Somebody has to do a third party independent audit. That if Marine Police is not capable, have the states really built up their capability? You mentioned Bangladesh. So obviously you will have to start looking even on the eastern front now. So when we look at terrorism, and that is exactly what we are looking at, because we don't want terrorism because our common citizens suffer. Our investments suffer. So that is where please don't have any expectation that it is only the uniformed forces which will work on that. Every individual, every citizen, and particularly those who are not in that line of control sector, and if any infiltration or drug trafficking or arms trafficking takes place, whether there are tunnels which have to be detected, whether there are people who are coming across the fence. So this is a response in which every citizen is involved. State governments will have to play a very active role. So I think when we look at the military operation, they will take care of themselves because it has happened. There are places which are silent and calm. Every calm place may not actually be absolutely peaceful. There is a storm possibly moving ahead. And you've seen in so many border states of ours where there have been communal problems, there have been ethnic problems, there have been fundings from outside, vulnerabilities have got highlighted. So I think that is where we all need to look internally. What reforms do we need? Do we need police reform?
But militarily, we are still on alert mode, and we will continue.
Absolutely.
Now, sir, lastly, global scenario. And I will not ask you this just as a person coming from armed forces background, but would see the things, globally happening. Politically, obviously, people will ask questions about, the third party intervention, about which you already made the things clear. But do we get swayed away by some posturing or friendly posturing of big countries, and then suddenly we find that, our expectations are not fulfilled? How do you see this, global equations unfolding now? Are we going back to the same situation that we had maybe pre-Pokhran?
See, I think this period has been quite demonstrative of our strategic autonomy as far as foreign policy is concerned. I don't think we've been pushed to a corner by anybody.
Everybody, at least on terrorism issue, was siding with us.
Yes.
At least
So-
on 7th May, 8th May.
Yeah. So if it is terrorism, the realization of the evils of terrorism, by and large, everyone has. Whether you publicly acknowledge or not is a different story. So nobody has opposed us that we have hit the terrorist camp. Yes, there will be always some pseudo intellectuals who will keep saying that you hit civilians, but that always has been the case. But in our case, that exchange of dossier and calling them, it has not worked. So we found a way, and people have by and large kept quiet on that. And thereafter, whatever escalation, that is the level where the international forces said, exercise restraint, bring back calm. That is not exertion of force or influence. That is an advice. That is an advice for us to either take or not take. You have a similar conflict, two conflicts going on where Israel is not listening to anybody. You have Russia not listening to anybody, whether it is Trump or anybody. So each country is free to decide what is the end goal and how do you look at conflict termination. There is no pressure on that particular account. Okay, we have enough reasons to believe that the powers that be want this entire area to be calm, if not peaceful, but at least calm, because there are commercial angles to it. People want to sell war-waging equipment and material to both of us. At least we are going the Atmanirbhar way, but the other guy is not. So if he is buying JF-17s and the kind of aircrafts which are fighting over each other, now if JF-17 is coming from China, J-10 is coming from China, or even if assembled in Pakistan, but finally it is theirs. F-16, what happens to the commercial model of the world? If an F-16 is declared to have fallen, what happens to the stock? What happens to the J-10 stock? So this propaganda war also is a very big thing as to who's lost what. And even the media, when they are reporting, they don't understand how the impact on the global economy will happen, because there are countries whose economy are largely driven by this war-waging material.
Defensive.
There are big global giants. If, for example, hypothetically, if a product of aircraft, fighter aircraft, is dropped, so many countries will stop buying from the others. So I am not taking names, but you can make out that what were the forces which are working. ये गिरा है कि नहीं गिरा, वो गिरा है कि नहीं गिरा. Some suddenly an image comes which is doctored. So you can make out कि ये इसके पीछे it's not only Indian Air Force or Pakistan Air Force. There are people beyond who are manipulating and seeing that hereafter country C should not be a supplier, country A can be a supplier. So even the activism of USA in that, you can make out there is a commercial interest in that.
You talked about doctor image, sir. So I can't stop myself from asking another last question. There was a doctor image about Adampur Air Base in Punjab, which DGMO Pakistan used in its press conference. Prime Minister hit the ground on the same
Adampur?
air base. Yes.
Yes.
They used image, doctored image in their press conference, maybe of some earlier event, I don't know. But Prime Minister went there. Prime Minister interacted with the soldiers. Prime Minister gave a speech. How do you see it as a soldier?
These days, it is very simple using technology. You look at any satellite image provider, any company, I'm not naming any company. There are global companies which give you satellite imagery, and in their archives, it is date stamped. And in that, if you Google that 1st January 2025, what was the condition of Adampur, they will show you. What was the condition of Bolari, they will show you. You have to just buy it. So it's a question of buying that image. India produced the best possible images in the DGMO's conference. Pakistan could not produce or did not produce because they would have been caught. So obviously not giving an answer is also an answer. So there, whether it is media, whether it is citizens, we all have to understand that geospatial imagery is the answer today to be able to ascertain whether there are actual losses, there are actual damages, there is actual attrition there. So I personally feel that this is intelligent warfare also, and at times hyper intelligence by misleading people. So doctoring of images, and then the Prime Minister straight away going there, displaying that there is S-400 right behind him, and talking to the people, boosting their morale. How many goals has he achieved in one particular visit? So we have to be agile, we have to be sensible, and such warfare, misleading. You now when you go to your audiovisual media, so much of nonsense is going on where they are talking ill about our officers, they are talking ill about our citizens, about our leaders. Now, here I have a point. When there is so much of disinformation which comes up on the information highway, what does a common Indian citizen who's on the netizen, what does he do? He just bypasses it. This comes from our psyche that when you're going on the road and there is an accident, you just go past. You don't get down, help that person. Or if there is a lady being molested or disturbed, you don't get down and hit that hooligan. That's in our psyche. On the other side, it's not so. If one of them is targeted, all of them will come together. This is a clear example which I can quote. The day when we started this operation, Honorable Raksha Mantri tweeted the moment we started, and within a few minutes, I also tweeted. And I had decided that I will wait and see what happens. So many anti-Indian foreigners or within inside India, they started trolling me. I never responded. There was a strategic reason for that. They were all coming out and exposing themselves. But there were people from India who were talking good about the operation, but they were not targeting these guys. What do we have to do? We have to learn to fight on the information highway. If we don't learn, and if we lose that fighting spirit, you'll get more and more targeted. So I think this is a new culture that we have to bring in. Anything which is on the information highway, which is anti-national, you have to get out. So what if you are trolled for some time? Doesn't matter. But nation comes first.
And do you see the doctrinal change also now when we are saying that any act of terror will be construed as
yes, this is a major shift. This is a paradigm shift. Paradigm shift in many ways, where you are ready to use power against any act of terrorism. Now, when you say any act of terrorism, the tolerance level has to be by grades. It's not that somebody fires a bullet across and you get after him. No. What is our resilience? How much can we accept? And where is that line? Where is that threshold? That will be decided, which will not be known to the adversary. So he's always worried, I've done this, now will I get that hammer? And that uncertainty or mysticism should always be maintained.
So we have that unclear threshold will now always be hanging on the like a sword.
Tolerance of ambiguity is also a weapon.
Thank you. With that strategic note, sir, we will end the conversation. It was a pleasure talking to, and thanks a lot for sparing so much of time to speak to.
Thank you, Prafullji, and a very big Jai Hind to your listeners and viewers.
Thank you. So thank you, listeners. And this was General Khandare, who is not just a decorated soldier, but a strategic thinker and advisor to Minister of Defence, who in a way gave a lot of insights about Operation Sindoor and what we can expect, and still maintaining strategic silence on many things which need not be discussed in a media platform. We, being a responsible media platform, also follow certain ethics and rules where the information related to the strategic movements and the decisions of our armed forces should be more intelligent, secret, and should be respected. So with this advice and the advice that General Khandare has given to us, that on this hereafter on information highway, we need to behave like a strategic soldier and evolve a strategic culture of our nation. I hope with this takeaway, we will be able to be ready to this continued fight against terrorism. So this was a discussion on Operation Sindoor, the offensive posture on the bordering areas against Pakistan is over, but the fight is still on. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching.